Bene, possiamo cominciare con le due relazioni di apertura. Il primo intervento è di Ross Mahon. Ross è un evangelista delle Google Apps, Google Apps Evangelist, e ci racconterà cosa sta succedendo, cosa ci proporrà il mondo Google per l'ambito formativo. Non vedo Borgonovo. Ah, ok. Grazie. Poi, infatti, abbiamo tergiversato un po' perché sapevamo delle difficoltà del trasferimento. Prego. Dopo Ross, Borgonovo invece di un altro mondo Adobe. Comunque, il primo intervento, Ross Mahon, you will have 30 minutes, and so you can start where you want.
So first of all, apologies for my lack of Italian. The Irish education system has a lot to answer for. Okay, so what I wanted to do was go through briefly where we see education, some of the challenges, for example, give you a brief overview of the Google Apps infrastructure, give you an idea of some of the tools, and then probably more interestingly, let's go through a demonstration of how these can be used in classrooms and lecture halls. So those of you who may be from the area may have seen this before. This is a university just down the road in Bologna in 1088, so quite a long time ago. Pretty standard format, teacher standing at the top, books, everybody kind of, working towards the teacher. Sorry, the mouse is... Okay. So one of the challenges that we've seen in education is the fact that not a lot has changed in several hundred years. Same concept, teacher standing at the front, lecturing, students listening, reading along. One of the challenges that was apparent in 1088, that is still apparent today, if anybody can see this, is this gentleman. Back of the classroom, he's fallen asleep because he hasn't potentially been engaged with. And engagement is a big problem, obviously, in education. One of the challenges for lecturers and teachers today, which has been brought on by the new generation of what we like to call as digital natives. Digital natives are people who have grown up, students that have grown up with technology. The idea of a student today starting in third level or in university without having a laptop, an iPad, an Android device of some kind would be somewhat alien. So how do we keep these students of tomorrow engaged? And from our point of view, one of the things we're seeing universities do very successfully is use the tools that they use and use the tools that they expect. So some of those could be the tools of the cloud. This is probably one of the most over-defined terms in computing at the moment. From our perspective, from Google's perspective, it's very straightforward. We have the cloud, which is where all your information, your email, your documents, your sites are. We have HTML5, which is the communication method, if you like, that will communicate your information from that to your web browser, whatever web browser you happen to choose. And as long as you have a web-enabled device, which could be a laptop, a notebook, a tablet, a mobile phone, whatever it happens to be, you can get access to your information. That's the key. They log in wherever they are and they have access. So from the Google Apps perspective, we have a suite of apps, a core suite of 8 applications. You may be familiar with some of these in the consumer world. So what we've done is we've used a lot of those consumer applications. We've given them the controls that you need from an education perspective. If you have 20,000 students, you want to be able to control them. If you have a classroom of 10 students, you still want to be able to control what they have access to and what they see. But you've got Gmail, you've got Google Talk, you've You've got Google Groups, Calendar, Google Documents, Sites, Video, Postini, which is an extra security and compliance layer, and then Marketplace, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So one of the big advantages of using a cloud solution, and in particular a cloud solution like Google Apps, is that it's hugely extensible. And by that I mean that you have a core Google Apps for Education suite, but then you have this extra plugin called the Google Apps Marketplace, which is at the moment running at about 350 or so third-party applications, everything from project management applications to some of your virtual learning environments that will plug straight into this, to accounting software that will just go straight in using single sign-on, using open protocols, straight into your Google Apps environment. That makes it very, very usable and customizable. Then another area where you can actually develop on and make this even more customized is Google App Engine. So you may be familiar with Google App Engine. It's our development platform in the cloud, allows you to host and develop web applications and host them on the Google infrastructure, which obviously has a lot of advantages from a redundancy and access standpoint. Then, of course, with any of these, you want to be able to have an administrative platform, as I spoke about earlier. You want to be able to control these and the access to these. And you also want to be able to have the communication between your enterprise data, your authentication system, your user management system, and anything that you have locally at a university or school level. And they will communicate, and we give you the free APIs, the free protocols where you can have that communication take place. So another big advantage from a cloud perspective is redundancy, is the fact that a lot of times when you have an on-premise system, one of the challenges is downtime, is what the US calls Patch Tuesday. So we get around that by offering a 99.9% uptime guarantee. In the last 6 months, we've actually hit 4 nines of redundancy, so 99.99%, which is a massive, massive redundancy. This is a downtime graph, which, as you can see here, is from 2008. In 2008, we had our worst year. It was not fantastically good from an uptime standpoint, but as you can see here, it's considerably better than pretty much anybody else can provide, and that's got a lot better since then. So another area from a university standpoint is, how do I continually keep up with the fact that these students coming in today have consumer devices, they're used to consumer applications that are updated, the innovation is moving at a very, very rapid pace. How do I keep up with that? Well, from a Google Apps standpoint, we're innovating at a massive speed. We had 218 feature releases in 2000 and 2010, and 2011 so far, we've got about 95 plus. So those could be anything from mobile docs editing to the Chrome browser, to Cloud Connect, which allows you to be in Microsoft Word, Excel, and PowerPoint and still communicate with the Google Apps Cloud from your client. Chromebooks, which I'll speak about in a second, and things like offline for Gmail, for Calendar, and for Docs. So this is our enterprise vision. So as you can see, you've got Google Apps, Google App Engine, as I spoke about, and the Marketplace. What is slightly unique about Google is the fact that we can also give you access to a manageable version of a browser that you can centrally manage, but is, again, leading the way and is making massive strides when it comes to speed and innovation, which is Chrome. We also have a massively successful mobile device platform, Android, which in Europe is actually doing fantastically well. And then we also have Chrome OS, which I'll speak about in a second again. With any of these, you get access, obviously, to your platform. If you happen to favor an iPad or an iPhone, obviously, you have the same access. It's just this is our vision. Okay, so another aspect, another very important part is when a university, when a school is looking at this, they want to know who else is using it. You will see some pretty familiar logos up here. We've obviously got University of Ferrara, we've got University of Pavia, we've got a lot of universities including the university that you're actually in at the moment as well. So we have very, very prestigious universities using Google Apps and innovating. And one of the advantages is that universities will talk amongst themselves, we will organize user groups, and they can work out how they can become more efficient in using Google Apps in the classroom. Okay, so the Chromebook. So this is a Chromebook. So basically what it is, this is a Samsung version of it. Basically what it is it's a portal, if you like, to the web. There's no hard drive on it. There's a 16 gig SD card, but in effect, everything is stored in the cloud. So it is your access to the cloud. One of the disadvantages of trying to centrally manage a massive IT infrastructure is the fact that you go through this kind of circle of hell to a certain extent when it comes to patching, security patches, upgrades, installing the latest software. Continuing have to do this, it can be very expensive and very time consuming. So it leads to frustration for users, difficult to manage this, and obviously when you allow users to install anything on their physical devices, you can get some questionable security holes and issues. So one of the big advantages of Chrome is that it has a centrally managed system. So you can, as a university, you centrally manage, you pre-install all of the applications on Chrome. If you've ever used Chrome as a browser, if you maximize that and imagine that you cannot minimize it, that's what Chrome OS basically looks like. We also have devices outside where you can have a play around with them outside in the main hall as well. So it simplifies IT, very, very familiar interface, and it's built, again, for the web. Cloud computing is one level. What we're looking at is 100% web. So I spoke about patches. Again, 6-week cycles is when we update Chrome OS. So it's constantly getting better. The last time we updated it got about 30 or 40% faster than the previous version. So it's automatically updating. And the security is actually already on the system. So you don't need any antivirus, anti-spam, malware. It's all actually built directly into it. And again, as I spoke about, the centrally managed. So from a security standpoint, one of the big questions is, how do I know that this device that I'm going to potentially purchase is actually secure? Every single tab is sandboxed, which basically means that if there's a piece of malware that's found or something that happens with one tab, that tab will crash and it will not let that piece of malware move across to another tab and infect something else. So if you open something that ends up being malware, it will not affect your entire device. It also verifies boots, so boots from the last known version of the operating system, which is very, very interesting. And all of the data on the device is fully encrypted. And again, from a management standpoint, from a recovery standpoint, all you need to do is switch off the device, switch it back on again, and it's restarted. And because nothing's stored locally, there's no need to do anything else. So from a cost standpoint, I'm not going to go into this, but massive cost complexity. We're trying to centrally manage devices. This is a piece of Gartner research. As you can see, that the costs are prohibitive in certain cases. But with universities that have deployed Chromebooks so far, they're looking at about a 70 to 75% reduction in costs of centrally managing devices using Chromebooks. Security is a vitally important part as well of the Google Apps story. We have a massive, massive infrastructure, which is one of the reasons that we can offer Google Apps for education for free. We have tens of thousands of identical servers. This is an example of one of our data centers. All of the hardware is actually custom built. We build it all ourselves. We're the 4th or 3rd largest server manufacturer in the world, depending on what day of the week it is. All of the data that you have is replicated, and it's across at least 3 different locations, physical locations. So if one data center blows up, goes down, is hit by lightning, you won't see a service outage because your data is backed up to the next data center. Your information is obfuscated as well. To give you an idea what that means is, if you can imagine, every single email you have is ripped up and sharded across multiple different server stacks, multiple different locations. So if someone did break in and breach our physical security, which is very unlikely, and they managed to pick up a server stack, they would have useless information. So one of the questions we get asked a lot is, that's great, but who owns my data? Very, very, very clearly, Google does not own your data. The university retains control over that data, and that is the way it has always been and will always be. To make sure that we make it as easy as possible for you to leave Google Apps at any stage if you're not happy or you want to move to a different platform, we offer what's called the Data Liberation Front. I don't know who let them call themselves that, but it is a group of engineers that make sure all of the APIs are reverse engineered. So you can take all your information with you at any stage during your use of Google Apps. 3 days after you migrate or 3 years, it's completely up to you. Again, as I spoke, we've over 4 million businesses that are actually paying for this service, which is the same as we have for education practically. So they actually pay for it. You've got companies like Telegraph and The Guardian, Jaguar Land Rover, for example, and ITV. So before we go into a little bit of a demonstration, wanted to just recap very quickly. So it's free for all users. There's no ads, no advertising for faculty, staff, or students. We recently increased the mailbox size from 7.6 gigabytes up to 25 gigabytes of mail quota, which should be a lot. You keep your domain, so it's at your university, at your school's domain. You do not have to take a Gmail address. 24/7 administrative support, all of the advanced integration capabilities, and again, you can control all of these applications at an organizational unit level, which means that staff can have one set of applications and students can have a completely separate ones if you wish. Chromebooks, as I've gone through, 8-second boot time, will last an entire day, 8.5 hours. It's 3G or Wi-Fi built in, depending on which model you decide to buy, and massively secure. So before I go into the demonstration, one of the things I'd like to leave you with as a quote is, the world we have created today as a result of our thinking thus far has problems which cannot be solved by thinking the way we thought when we created them. Albert Einstein, very intelligent fellow. What I like about this quote is a lot of times people are trying to solve issues of the future with technology of the past. A lot of this is talking about how we can move forward and adopt and use the technology that is now and of the future. So with that, how am I doing on time? Good. Yes, the first time ever I'm actually on time. Okay. Right. So you may be familiar, this is the new user interface for Google Apps. So going through some changes at the moment, but this is to make everything look an awful lot easier. We've added a lot of functionality to Google Apps, and we want to make sure that it's easy for you to use. And this is an easier platform, if you like. In a sense, you have some interesting points that I'll just show you now. One of them, for example, is obviously we have a standard inbox. You can basically set it up in whichever way you wish. If you wanted to have a split inbox, or if you want to, say, for example, have the inbox shown on the bottom or on the top, it's completely up to you as to how you want that. And if we have a look at one of the integrated chat features, so I have a gentleman sitting to my left here who is going to have a little chat with me. And one of the options, obviously, is you could use Instant Messenger. You could also video chat. You could use Google Voice, or you could add in multiple different people to this chat. What I'm going to do is I want to add in a little translation bot, because my Italian is so poor that I have no way of communicating with them unless I actually speak in Italian. That means when I type in Italian, it automatically translates, or in English, it automatically translates it into Italian. The same thing will happen when Massimo types the other way. He will be able to, it'll automatically, as soon as he adds that bot, the Italian to English bot, it will automatically give that translation to me in real time. Obviously, this is very, very useful if you're dealing with a parent who doesn't speak Italian or any other language for that matter, or if you don't speak that particular language. So that's quite a useful one. Another very useful addition from a translation standpoint is we also have it built into the actual mail itself. So this is Hindi. I don't speak Hindi, but I want to work out what this parent is actually trying to convey to me, what exactly it is that they want to try and get across. The translation is meant to be a very, very good translation. It's not meant to be absolutely perfect, but as you can see here, straight from within the mail, I can then see exactly what's going on. Also, the languages that are covered are wide and varied. And for those of you who are concerned, we do cover Irish, and we also cover Yiddish and Welsh. So we're covering most of the bases. Okay, so if we move on to calendar. So one of the big advantages, again, of Google Apps is that you basically move through all of the different applications with this black bar along the top. So you can just go from one to the other. You can open up your documents. You can open up your calendar, all from the same browser window. So in here we have calendar. From here I can add in, as a university, I could populate the calendar for all of my students, or I could ask them to subscribe to a particular group of events. So I can then work out from a student's perspective, or from a lecturer's perspective, what I've got on for the week. And I can also say to a colleague of mine or another student, book some time in my calendar, it's up to date. You can see exactly where the gaps are, because I can update this again from any device. If you want to add a particular event, very straightforward. You just go in, change the name of it, obviously. You can then add in guests as you wish, and you can also use something which is quite useful. You can use find a time or free busy to find out when the particular time is. So from there as well, one of the big advantages of apps is that everything works together. So imagine a meeting that happens every single month. It's got meeting notes attached. You can attach your document, your Google Docs, straight from here without having to send any more emails. So all you do is you add in a description with an agenda. You add in where it is. If you have this synced up to your room system, you can actually sync it up to your rooms. You can add in devices or other rooms and book them directly from here. And then when you send that out, the person or the group of people have full access to everything that they need. So from one place, you just have to do that action once. So calendar is very useful. Google Documents is another really interesting area. So this is the interface. Again, Google has a concept generally, obviously, as a search company, that we search as opposed to sort. We give you both options, but by and large, you're going to be able to search up here. You can narrow down the documents in here between the type of document, if you own it, or if it's been shared with you, or if you want to sort it by your modified or title or whatever else. So you've got a lot of options to try and find your documents. You can also set up a collection, which is, again, like a folder, if you like. The interesting thing about the folders is that if you have a group of students, you can choose to share a folder with that group of students using Google Groups. So say English students or Italian students or whatever else happens to be, you can share that entire folder. Any document you add to that folder, they will then get access to. So a lot of the Google Apps Suite is about making it easier for you to collaborate in teams. Okay, so if we have a look at I think we're in exam prep, were we? Massimo's in there, let me check. Open up one or two of these. I have a tendency to break Macs for some reason. They don't like me. I love them, they just don't like me. Okay. Right, so here is, for example, a document that I'm going to work with Massimo on, for example. And what we started doing here is we're working as two lecturers, and we want to try and overcome the problems that students have with final exams. They seem to be constantly anxious. We're having a lot of people that are stressed out. So we've got a list of things here that we wanted to work on. Massimo's typed everything up, and now I'm basically going through it. As you can see, he's got full visibility there. You can see this is Massimo. It's got his little name there, Max. He can type away. As soon as he then, for example, types, I can be down further down the page or on the next line, and I can be typing away as well. One of the things I like is that obviously if you were based in 2 or 3 different campuses, the ability to also chat. You can then chat, obviously 15, 20 people chatting, all working on the same document. You can then go back and say, for example, you wanted to question the date. You could go in here and insert a comment. You can say, what? Keep it simple. And as you can see, you start to build up somewhat of a project management app. You can then see the entire history of your conversations. You can say that, for example, this one you're going to say, I've resolved it. I'm happy with that. It's done. This one I've resolved as well. They disappear from the right-hand side, but they remain here. So you have a history of all of the comments on a document. Would be very, very useful when you're dealing with 10, 15 people working on the same document at the same time. One of the questions we get a lot is, that's great, but I'm working with 15 students. 4 of them like to delete my documents. What do I do if someone deletes a document? You've got a full revision history of everything that happened. So that's the last edit there. But you can see here, every single time it saves, which it does so every couple of seconds, you can revert back to any version of that document at any stage. And you therefore never lose the document. There's the original, and that's what we're at now. And as you can see, Max there has added in this bit here, which is replicated by his color over there. So very, very useful from a collaboration standpoint. Another useful and interesting thing to remember is that this is a group of primary school teachers who actually designed this. Remember that the spreadsheets, Google Apps, it's all obviously connected to the web, which lets you do a lot of things that are kind of fun. So if you say, for example, change this word here to dog, and you hit enter, it'll then change that across the entire list. All they've done is basically inserted a Google Translate, and there's loads of different options. You can use a Google lookup, you can use Translate, you can import financial data, you can do basically any number of things using anything you can find online and bringing it directly, that information, into a spreadsheet, analyzing it and producing it in a graph so that the user can see it. You can embed it in a spreadsheet or a document or a site instantly, which is very useful. So last thing in this is that if you see this form, for example, there's it. So very, very simple, two uses of Google Forms. So one of the other challenges, I suppose, is that if you want to try and survey an entire group of people, so this is what the form looks like in the background. But if you wanted to survey if you wanted to survey an entire group of students, or you want to just find out what their thoughts are, you can develop a form, really, really straightforward. It can look like this. You fill in the information, and it'll automatically populate instantly into the spreadsheet. So an example of this, which is a lot quicker than the last one, is feedback. I want to say, Ross, and I need to ask my lecturer for help. Very simple. I submit that. I then instantly, that is submitted. Right down at the bottom of this page here, because I've used this form quite a lot, you can see here that Ross, down to the millisecond, I said help, and you can basically use that to collect information or to use it for tests as well. Another area is Google Sites, and you'll be happy to know this is one of the last ones. Google Sites is quite useful. So you can use sites in a multitude of different ways to either give a student an e-portfolio, or if a lecturer wanted to have a Google site, they could use this tool. So I'm going to show you just two sites here. Okay. So this is a site that we used at the at a conference recently, and it literally took about 10 or 15 seconds to actually set up. Unfortunately, I'm having the same effect on Macs again. There we go. So very straightforward. You want to basically introduce what the site is. You want to have an announcement section, a calendar section, a contacts directory. You set it all up very straightforward. All you do is create a site. You go in here and you choose, say for example, I'm going to call this one, test. It automatically creates that. From here you pick the template that you want. I want that one. You then choose what level of permissions you're going to have. I'm just going to make it visible to anybody at my domain, at my university, for example. And then from there, oh, I forgot I used that already. There we go. You create that site. You create that site, and this is what it looks like. So really basic, but from there, in order to actually add a page, it's meant to be incredibly intuitive. The idea is if you can send an email, you can set up a Google site. So you call the page anything you want. You can have it as a web page, an announcement, a file cabinet, a list, and you can see then from there how you could start to build out this site very quickly, or your students could build out a site very quickly. And again, like Google Docs or Calendar or anything else for that matter, you control the sharing permissions. You say who actually gets access to this document, or this site, I should say. You control it at every level, at the overall site level and also at the page level. And you just add the user in, or you add in a group, for example, in there, and they will then get access to that site. Here's an example of one that's used, I believe, in a secondary school with about 1,600 students or so. And they've just used this site, class 3, 4, etc., and they're using it as a file store. So all of the students can log into this site. They then get access to all of the different files that they want. They can be in any format, obviously PDF, they can be an Excel file, and from there you're trying to centralize and collaborate together. Last two things before I'm kicked off the stage is video. So video is basically YouTube for your domain. What video does is, you can imagine, there's a lot of videos that you have out there you're quite happy to put up on YouTube and for anybody to see it. But if you wanted to welcome all the first years as the dean or as the IT manager for a university or school, you can do this in here, and the video will only be visible within the domain. So that's quite useful. And lastly, as I spoke about the integrations, when you're looking at some of the other sort of integrations you have, people may be familiar with something like Avery. What you can do is marketplace applications. You go in, you add them. A lot of them are free. Some of them do cost. You then get access to them all from in here. So you don't need to log back out, log back in again. Your students get access to any of these applications. There's 350 plus that you can add in, or you can build them yourself, obviously using App Engine. What it looks like is I'm still logged in, as you can see up the top here, but I've got access to Avery now under my logged in account. So that is a quick run through of Google Apps. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Se avete domande, sollecitazioni. Io ho una domanda, Rosma, di tipo I have a question, but just
Yep, I'm
demonstrating.
got it in
Okay, they're translating. E come può fare un istituto scolastico, un'istituzione, un'università ad avere, cioè quali sono i passi per avere accesso a una suite completa di questa natura?
Sure, that's a good question. Oh, I'll take that while I'm answering because it's feeding back. So what you would do is you use your favorite search engine. I'm not going to tell you which one was mine, but if you go to do a search for Google apps for education, or just EDU even. Here we go. Hopefully the first result back will be perhaps there's too many things open. It's stuck. Oh, there we go. Okay. So Google Apps for Education. And then from here, the steps would be you would go through and hit Get Apps for My School, or it's Get Apps or Try Apps Today. Make sure it's on the education edition and not the business one, because the business one costs €33 a year for each user, and the education one's free, so make sure you do that one. It just doesn't like me today. But once I do get in here, you would then go through register your school's domain, or if you want to, initially you can also test. So you can see that up there, Get Apps for My School. You can go through and use a test domain, or you can use your actual school domain if you're happy to move forward straight from there. You then register that domain in here. You fill in a form. Then you have to do 2 technical steps, which you may have to get some help from an IT person. One is the verification of the ownership of the domain. So you have to verify that you own the domain that you're now going to move on to Google Apps. It's pretty straightforward. If you want to pick up your car from outside the street, you have to make sure you have the keys. Same idea. Then you have to switch what's called the MX records, which are the thing that will point your email to a particular provider. And in our case, obviously, you want to point your MX records to Google. You can do that. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not very technical at all, and I can do it. But it's if you need support, obviously, once you sign up your domain, once you actually go through this, you do also get 24/7 administrative support. So you do have access to that as well. But there is a full user guide, steps as to how you do it, and it is quite straightforward. If you, from a deployment standpoint, then yes, and obviously, GlobalBase can actually offer local support from a deployment, from a setup standpoint as well, to make that transition even more straightforward. So that's a service that a lot of our universities use, because again, GlobalBase have deployed a lot of schools and universities, and they can go through that step for you. But that's how you would start off anyway.
Thanks. Altre domande? Just a second. Talk to a microphone. Microphone to Miranda. Microphone to Miranda.
I have a very simple question. You quoted a price or a cost of $15, $17 somewhere. You one of the first. What do you buy with that?
Okay. So sorry. The only thing that costs 15 or 17 euro is for a physical Chromebook. So that's how much these Chromebooks cost on a monthly basis. So the way these work is that a university could, say, for example, sign up and purchase 100 of these Chromebooks. They then pay £15 or £17 a month, or there's different models. two of the options for Wi-Fi only. They then get access, they can give out 100 of these to students, they can centrally manage them. These are the education version of Chromebooks. You can also purchase them for, I think, for about €300 or so on Amazon. But the advantage of these, if you give them out to 100 students, you as the administrator get to program exactly what they see, what they can install, what they can use, and that's kind of a big advantage. Does that answer
So
your
you
question?
rent it. It's not, you can buy those or you just rent it.
What happens is you have them, it costs €15 a month, say for example, for a 3-year period. After the 3 years, you own the devices. You can take them away and you own them. So yes, it's the idea. The reason we've done it that way is because a lot of universities, a very, very large capital outlay is not massively kind of appealing. So you could say to your students, if you wish, you can give us €10 a month, and we'll cover the other 5, and you can then have a laptop for your entire college career. And the key thing is that the difference between this and, say, for example, trying to manage a Windows machine, for example, is it keeps getting better. Every 6 weeks, there's a new operating system that automatically goes on. So the hardware doesn't necessarily need updating the same kind of refresh rate as a Windows machine would, for example.
Thank you.
Grazie Ross. Altre domande?